So now that we're done with the leg portion of our sock, it's time to work on the heel. So this is kind of an example of what it's going to look like in the end. So it looks kind of complicated because you see we're going a little bit diagonal here. So what we do is I'll put a couple diagrams on the screen here, but I'll walk you through every step and explain it. We're going to do a heel flap and gusset. So this is not a short row heel, but it does involve some short rows. So essentially we are going to knit back and forth flat on half of our stitches. This is what it kind of looks like. This is our heel flap. Covers the back of our heel. So we knit this on half our stitches, and then we do our heel turn, which is, it's a little bit hard to see on camera, but we have to round out the bottom of our heel. And then our gusset is to join the heel flap and heel turn to the rest of our sock. We end up with this diagonal look here. It sounds very complicated up front, but I'll break it down for you. To begin, we have to redistribute our stitches. So I'll put them on screen here. So needle 1 is the needle closest to you when you're starting your row. So the one with our marker in it is our needle 1 stitches. And then your needle 2 will have this many stitches. So I currently have 17 stitches on needle 1. I need to redistribute that to only have 16. So in order to do that, I'm going to slide my stitches down by pulling on the needles. Until we get down to the bend in our cord. So I'm going to pinch that bend, slide our stitches down, and I need to have 16 stitches on needle 1. I have 17 currently, so I need to move 1 from needle 1 to needle 2. So I just bend down to the cord and just kind of slide 1 stitch over and then pull on that bend in the cord and push my needles back on. So now I can recount my stitches and I should have 16 on needle 1. And again, check your size because you'll need 16, 18, or 20 depending on the size you chose. So I have 16 on one needle and 18 on the other. We are going to stop working in the round and we're only going to work on the stitches that are currently on needle 1 for now. So we're just going to knit back and forth, just flat, plain for a couple of inches. Row 1, which is a right side row, we're going to slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in back, knit 1, and you repeat that all the way across. So if you've never slipped a stitch, I'll teach you how to do that. As we've been doing, we're going to pull out the back needle and we're only going to be working with these front stitches here. To begin, we're going to slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in back. So to slip a stitch purlwise, you go into it as if you were going to purl it, but instead you just move it to your right hand needle. And with the yarn in back means with the yarn in the back of your work. So with the yarn behind our needle in the back of our work, right? Go into the first stitch as if to purl. So from right to left, like this, and just move it to your right hand needle. And now we're going to knit 1. So go into the next stitch as if to knit, yarn over, pull through, slide off. And that's your repeat. So slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in back, knit 1 all the way across. So again, with our yarn in the back of our work, go into the next stitch from right to left as if to purl it, and just slip it to your right hand needle, knit the next stitch, slip the next one as if to purl with the yarn in the back, knit 1, and just repeat that. So slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 1. And every size has an even number of stitches, so you should end with a knit 1. So that was row 1. And now, because we're no longer working in the round, we're working flat for a little while, we're going to turn our work. So go ahead and flip it. You don't need to change how your needles are because we're just going to work back from right to left across this needle. Again, we're only working on those 16, 18, or 20 stitches that are on needle 1. For row 2, which is a wrong side row, you're going to slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in front and then purl across. So you only slip the first stitch and then purl the rest of the stitches. So slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in front is very similar to what we just did, but this time the yarn remains in the front of your work. So it should already be in the front of your work, and you're going to slip the first stitch as if to purl. So go into it from right to left as if you were going to purl it, and just slip it to your right hand needle. It might stretch out like this. That's okay. We'll even it out in the second stitch. Go ahead and purl across. So go into the next stitch from right to left, even out that stitch, yarn over, pull through, slide off. And again, into the next stitch from right to left, yarn over, pull through, slide off. And that's it. You just purl all the way across the row. It may feel a little bit clunky in the beginning, but once we have a few rows of our heel flap done, it will start to feel better. There we have it. Go ahead and turn your work. And bring your yarn around to the back of your needle. If it's in the front like this, just bring it around to the back. It should not be twisted. So for row 3, we're on another right side row. So this time we're going to slip 2 purlwise with the yarn and back, and then repeat a knit 1, slip 1 purlwise with the yarn and back until you have 2 stitches left, which you will knit. A slip 2 purlwise with the yarn and back means that you're going to slip 2 stitches as if you were going to purl them at the same time while keeping the yarn in the back of your work. The yarn is in the back of our work, and you go into the first 2 stitches as if you were going to purl them. So into the first stitch from right to left, and then into a second stitch from right to left. So at the same time, going into both of them, and then just slip them to your right hand needle, and that's it. You've slipped those 2 stitches with the yarn held in the back, and now we're going to knit the next stitch, and then you slip 1 purlwise with the yarn and back, so into the next stitch from right to left as if you were going to purl it, but just slip it to your right hand needle, and then knit 1, and then slip 1, and then knit 1, and you do this until you have 2 stitches left. So your last stitch here should be a slip stitch, and then you've got 2 on your left hand needle, and you're just going to knit the last 2 stitches. You can drop your needle and turn your work. And for row 4, which is a wrong side row, we're going to do the same thing that we did for row 2. So we're going to slip 1 purlwise with the yarn in front and then purl across. So you only slip the first stitch of the row. So the yarn held in the front of our work here, go into the first stitch on the needle from right to left, as if you're going to purl it, and just slip it to your right hand needle, and then go into the next stitch and purl it. So you can kind of even out the tension of that first stitch. Yarn over, pull through, slide off, and you just purl all the way across. And there we have it. That is row 4. So go ahead and drop your needle and turn your work, and bring our yarn around the needle to the back. Okay, so it's not twisted or sitting over our needle. It's just hanging out in the back as it should be. So that is your repeat. So you're going to work rows 1 through 4 until your heel flap is approximately as long as it is wide, and end with a finished wrong side row. So a good fitting heel flap is usually between 1.5 to 2.5 inches or 4 to 6.5 centimeters long, depending on your preference. So the sample is approximately 2 inches, 5 centimeters long, and it can be helpful to write down the number of rows you worked in the heel flap so the second sock will be identical. Go ahead and work those 4 rows until you reach your desired length. This part is going to sit on the very back of your foot along your heel. So however long you want that to be, you could measure, your heel from the ground up to see how long you want it to be. But again, a good fitting heel flap is usually between 1.5 and 2.5 inches or 4 to 6.5 centimeters long. And because we're working with slip stitches, I'm going to measure it as I go. Our stockinette gauge is going to be different than our heel flap gauge, so I'm not going to go off of my row gauge that I used for my sock. I'm just going to measure it as I go, write it down so that I'll know for the second sock how long to make it. So go ahead and repeat those 4 rows, and I'll meet you back here for the heel turn.